Hey everybody. Music in the background is one of my favorite players, one of my major influences growing up, Grover Washington Jr. Listen to the sound. Woo. So growing up in the 1980s, Grover Washington Jr. was huge for me, especially from the Philadelphia area. Being from the Philadelphia area, Grover was really knit into the fabric of Philadelphia. And I was just enamored with his sound, his feel. I loved his music. I wore out that album Wine Light that he wrote. I loved everything about it. I even loved the album cover. I had the album. It was a white album cover with a glass of wine and a saxophone. On that album, he had a tune that he wrote for Dr. J from the 76ers basketball team called Let It Flow. Just a beautiful album. And I don't know why, but I've been thinking a lot about Grover Washington Jr. these last few days. I even brought the soprano out. He played all the horns and played them wonderfully. So Grover really is probably one of the fathers of smooth jazz, even though when he was playing in the 80s, smooth jazz was not a term. It was more considered fusion, fusion or pop jazz. I don't even know what they would call it. Like, it wasn't really labeled. It was just Grover. There were some guys that just kind of had that. It was their name, David Sanborn, Grover. And the music was amazing. I loved it and really devoured a lot of Grover's stuff. So I'm making this video today because I figured I would tell you the story. I actually had a chance to meet him and play with him. And for as wonderful a player as he is, boy, he was a great guy. He was so kind. So here's how I met him. It was 1988. I was a senior in high school, and my high school jazz band was one of those competitive jazz bands that went out to a bunch of festivals. Now, my private teacher, who was not my high school band director, but John Cooper, who I've talked about multiple times on this channel. John, just a wonderful educator, saxophone player, composer, and an even better person. But John headed up the program, the jazz program at Lincoln University, or Lincoln College, I can't remember what it's called, outside of Philadelphia. And he hosted a jazz festival, a high school jazz festival, where high school jazz bands came, and he had a featured artist. And my senior year, the featured artist was Grover Washington Jr. So Grover came and was gonna do a set of music at the end. All the jazz bands had played, and then he does a set of music, and he was gonna do it with the Lincoln University, the jazz ensemble their combo or whatever. John Cooper had rehearsed them. So Grover didn't bring a band with him, but these college students played with him. And then Grover was gonna end his set with one of his most popular tunes, Mr. Magic. And John Cooper had written some horn parts, so there were about 3 high school players that were gonna play these horn parts, and I was one of them. And not only did I play the horn parts, play the tenor part, which is, it's funny, it's all funny coming back to me. I played lead alto in my jazz band, but I brought my tenor with me because I knew I would be playing with Grover. Anyway, so I had the tenor on stage, and I got to solo on Mr. Magic alongside Grover. And Grover was such a huge influence for me at that point in my life. Like I said, I was devouring, David Sanborn and Grover Washington Jr. and all these saxophone players, in addition to Phil Woods and, just you name it. I couldn't get enough, right? But I loved Grover because at that point, my harmonic sense wasn't as, I don't want to say it wasn't as advanced like it's advanced now. I don't know. But Grover's tunes harmonically were not as dense as, let's say, like standards, or even stuff like what Michael Brecker was doing with the Brecker Brothers and all that. It was more like instrumental pop with great grooves. Grover certainly was playing a bunch of stuff on it, but I just love that music. It really, I could really appreciate it. So here I was on stage soloing with Grover Washington Jr. as a high school senior. Incredible. I actually still have a cassette tape of it somewhere because somebody recorded it, and I still have it on cassette tape. I don't even have a cassette tape player anymore. But I can't get rid of the tape because it means so much to me. But why am I making this video? Well, I don't know why I've been thinking about Grover over the last week or so. He just popped into my head, and I've just been thinking about him and listening to some of the music. He was such a kind person. So when I met him that day, for some reason, before the show, I'm back in this like band room, classroom with him, and it was just me and Grover, and we're talking about stuff. You know, I think I met him, and I'm starstruck, and I'm like talking about, I don't know, stumbling through a conversation about reeds or something. What does a high school senior talk to Grover Washington Jr. about? Again, he's like one of my musical idols, and here he is standing right in front of me, but he was so kind. And so he's like, oh, here are reeds. If you want some reeds, here's some reeds. And I remember they were like the brown box Ricos. If anybody remembers brown box Ricos, not the orange box, but these like brown box. They had actually a top on them. But they were strength number 4s. And he was like, they might be a little strong for you. I mean, I was playing like 2.5 Rico Royals or something at that point. So I couldn't even make a sound out of this stuff, but he was so kind. He was like, oh, take whatever you want. Hey, you want to try my saxophones? Here are my try my saxophones. I tried all of his saxophones with all my mouthpieces. Like, he was just so kind. And he could have just completely dismissed me, but he didn't. He was kind. So it was just a real lesson for me in humility and humanity. Not only is this guy this world-class musician who's touring the world, who so many people knew, not only is he that person, but he also was a person who took the time with a high school senior who had no business being on stage with him. But he took the time and talked to me as if I was like a peer of his. I will never forget that. And so I'm forever thankful for Grover Washington Jr. I miss him not being around. He died too soon. But like I said, you know, really woven into the fabric of Philadelphia. I can't really even watch a 76ers game without thinking about all the times that they brought Grover out to play the national anthem, a cappella on his tenor saxophone. Just amazing. Or alto, you know, he would do it a lot of times. He was a big basketball fan, but just an amazing player and an even more amazing person. So that's the time I met Grover Washington Jr., and it was all possible because of John Cooper. Thanks, John. Another thing you did for me. All right, hope everybody's well.